I used to think there were two kinds of humiliation in marriage. The private kind, where your wife says something cruel in the kitchen while the microwave hums in the background and neither of you ever mentions it again. And the deluxe public edition, where she does it in front of friends, family, candles, catered food, and a custom buttercream cake you paid for. Guess which one I got? Context: my wife, Vanessa, had a birthday coming up, and against my better judgment, I decided to be thoughtful. I know. Rookie mistake. Somewhere, a wise old divorced man probably felt a disturbance in the universe and whispered, "Don't do it, son," into his whiskey. Vanessa was turning 34. She was still beautiful, and she knew it in the same effortless way rich people know where not to look when the bill comes. We had been married for 5 years, long enough for me to remember the sweet version of her. The version who used to laugh at my dumb jokes, instead of acting like she was doing community service by staying in the room while I told them. The last year had been off. Not movie drama off, just slow poison off. She had started correcting me more in public, rolling her eyes when I spoke, doing that fun little smile women do when they want everyone to know they're embarrassed for you, but in a classy way. I told myself what every married man tells himself when he's trying not to admit the obvious. She's stressed. Work's been crazy. Maybe I've been distant too. Maybe Mercury is in a fistfight with Saturn. Maybe I'm an idiot. The last one turned out to be the strongest theory. A week before her birthday, I decided I was going to do something big. Not because she deserved it, but because some stubborn part of me hated the thought of the marriage quietly crumbling. So I planned a surprise party at the house. Our house, by the way. Legally mine, financially mine, emotionally, apparently Airbnb property for whatever version of my wife was currently auditioning for the role of woman who tolerates her husband like a slow intern. I never rubbed ownership in her face. I bought the place 3 years before we got married, refinanced after, renovated half of it with my own money, and still called it ours because that's what normal husbands do when they're still pretending mutual respect is not an optional subscription service. I booked catering from her favorite Italian place. I ordered a cake that looked like it belonged in a magazine. I strung lights in the backyard, hired a bartender for the evening, and invited her family, our friends, her friends, and 2 women I had only met once but who somehow already spoke to me like I was Vanessa's polite but underqualified driver. Her sister Claire was helpful. Helpful in the way a customs officer is helpful. Vanessa said no cheesy decorations, she told me over the phone. Good thing I wasn't planning to cover the lawn with inflatable dolphins. She also doesn't like those generic husband speeches. I'll be sure not to recite a sonnet about her skincare routine. Silence. Claire never knew what to do when sarcasm showed up fully dressed. Then she cleared her throat. I'm just saying she wants it elegant. I heard you the first time. I'm only trying to help. Then tell me something useful, like whether your sister still drinks that French rosé that tastes like regret and strawberries. She does. See? Teamwork. Vanessa's mother, Diane, was worse. Diane had perfected the art of talking to me like I had accidentally wandered into adulthood without proper supervision. "Oh, sweetheart," she said when she came by 2 days before the party. "You're doing all this yourself?" "Yes, Diane." She stood in the kitchen surveying the prep list like a disappointed queen inspecting rural farmland. "Well, it's very ambitious. Vanessa likes things a certain way. I've been married to her for 5 years, Diane. I've noticed. The day of the party, I took off work and spent 6 straight hours turning the house into a place my wife might describe as tasteful, instead of trying too hard. By 5:30, the backyard looked incredible. Lights draped across the fence, tables set, food warming, music low and classy, bar stocked, cake in place, candles ready. The whole thing looked like one of those social media posts that convinces single people marriage is a magical partnership. My friend Eric showed up first, carrying a bottle of bourbon and the expression of a man who had seen enough marriages to smell trouble before the appetizers came out. He looked around and whistled. Damn. Either you're a loving husband or you're about to confess to tax fraud. Can't it be both? He handed me the bottle. This is too nice. What did you do? Why does everyone assume a man can't just do something generous without a hidden felony? Because you look tense. I'm hosting 20 people. Of course I look tense. Eric laughed. How's Vanessa been? I shrugged. Depends. Are we using civilian language or diplomatic language? He grinned. Give me both. Civilian, distant, diplomatic, increasingly convinced I'm a decorative household object. He gave me a look. That bad? Let's say if I were any less respected in my own house, I'd come with batteries. Eric had met Vanessa enough times to know I wasn't exaggerating for sport. He lowered his voice. You sure this party is a good idea? Nope. Then why do it? Because part of me was still stupid enough to hope she'd walk in, see everything, soften a little. Remember, I wasn't the enemy. Out loud, I said, because if I don't try, I'll hear about that too. He nodded slowly. Fair. Guests started arriving around 6:30. Aunts, cousins, friends, neighbors, co-workers. Laughter rose, glasses clinked, the bartender started pouring. For about 15 minutes, I almost relaxed. Then Vanessa got home. Claire had arranged to bring her just for dinner. I was standing near the patio when I heard heels on the front hall tile, then her voice floating in from inside. Why are there cars everywhere? Then Vanessa stepped into the backyard and stopped. She looked genuinely stunned for a second. Not performative, real. And I'll admit it, that hit me right in the chest. Because for one brief, dangerous moment, I saw the woman I used to know. The guests yelled, "Surprise!" She brought a hand to her mouth and laughed. Oh my God! People came over to hug her. Friends kissed her cheek. Her mother made a theatrical fuss. Claire looked pleased with herself for doing almost nothing. I stood back for a second, watching Vanessa smile. Then she spotted me. She came over in a fitted dark green dress that probably cost more than my first car and wrapped her arms around me. This was you? She asked. Unless Claire suddenly developed organizational skills? She laughed. A real one. Wow, okay, wow. You hate it? I don't hate it. Strong start. She pressed a quick kiss to my cheek. Thank you. For 5 whole seconds, I thought maybe I had misread everything these past months. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe we had gotten lazy. Maybe tonight would reset something. Then one of her friends pulled her away, and the spell broke like cheap glass. And right around her second glass of rosé, the other version of her clocked in. I was talking to one of her co-workers, a guy named Simon, when Vanessa slid up beside us. Simon smiled. Your husband did a fantastic job with this. Vanessa sipped her drink. He tries. Simon chuckled like he thought it was banter. I smiled too, because what else do you do? Announce to the patio that your wife had just turned your effort into a punchline between mozzarella skewers. She seems happy, Simon said to me. That's always the dream. Keep expectations low, survive the evening. Vanessa gave me a look. See, he does this thing. What thing? This self-conscious humor, like he's auditioning to be underestimated. I stared at her for half a beat. Simon pretended to find the bar very interesting. I smiled. Well, if I ever start auditioning to be worshipped, I'll let you know. She gave a tiny shrug and wandered off. I kept moving, refilling ice, checking on food, making sure people had what they needed, doing host things. At some point, Diane cornered me by the dining table. You forgot the little serving spoons for the antipasti. No, Diane, they're right there. She peered down. Oh. Heartbreaking, I know. She straightened. No need to be snippy. I'm only trying to make sure tonight goes smoothly for Vanessa. And I'm only the man who paid for 90% of it. We all have our little roles. She stared at me like she wanted to complain to management. And for once I almost wished there was a management. About an hour in, Vanessa had gathered a small orbit of friends near the bar. I was within earshot when I heard one of them say, "Seriously, this is amazing. Nathan outdid himself." Vanessa laughed, swirling her glass. "Let's not get carried away. He's useful when given a mission." That got a burst of laughter. I smiled into my drink. One of her friends, Melissa, smirked at me and said, "Well, whatever you did, you should write it down. Husband training manual." I looked at her. Step 1, acquire patience. Step 2, never waste it on people named Melissa. Eric almost choked on his drink across the patio. Melissa gave me a fake offended look, and Vanessa said, "Play nice." That would have sounded more convincing if she hadn't been the one setting the tone all night. Later, while people were eating, her cousin Jenna asked how I had managed to keep the whole thing secret. Before I could answer, Vanessa leaned back in her chair and said, "He gets underestimated a lot. It helps." There was a laugh from the table. I set down my fork. "That's 3 tonight." She looked at me. "What is?" "The running theme where I'm apparently a loyal golden retriever who accidentally learned event planning." Claire snorted into her wine. Diane looked annoyed. Eric looked deeply interested. Vanessa tilted her head. "Oh my God, are you keeping count?" "Only because repetition helps learning." A couple people laughed. "Good. If she wanted the room, I could work one too." Her smile tightened a little. "Relax. People are complimenting you." "No," I said pleasantly. "They're complimenting me. You're doing whatever this is." That earned a silence just noticeable enough to matter. She took a slow sip of wine and smiled again, but this one had teeth in it. "You are so sensitive tonight." I smiled back. "Maybe. Or maybe I just prefer not being turned into a bit at my own table." "Ours," she corrected automatically. I looked at her for a second. "Sure." That little word sat there between us like a nail. The conversation around the table resumed, but with that forced cheer people use when they can feel tension crawling under the cloth. A woman from her office said, "Honestly, most husbands wouldn't do half this." Vanessa laughed and said, "Nathan's not most husbands. He's convenient." Convenient, not loving, not dependable, not generous. Convenient. I set my drink down so carefully it almost made me laugh. Eric appeared beside me like a war correspondent sensing casualties. "You heard that too, right?" I asked. "Oh, I heard it. Just making sure I'm not hallucinating from decorative lighting." He blew out a breath. "She's had too much to drink." "No," I said. "She's had too much honesty." Vanessa came over about 10 minutes later, smiling like nothing had happened. "You look grumpy," she said. "And you look like you're enjoying yourself." "I am. It's my birthday." "Yeah, I noticed." She frowned slightly. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I'm just admiring the atmosphere." She folded one arm under the other and lowered her voice. "Are you seriously going to do this tonight?" I smiled. "Do what?" "This sulking thing." Eric took one very wise step backward. "I'm going to check the bourbon situation." Coward. Sensible. Experienced coward. As soon as he left, Vanessa stepped closer. "Can you not make this weird? You've spent the last 2 hours taking little shots at me like it's a party game, but sure, let's talk about weird." Her eyes flashed. "Oh my God, they were jokes." "Right. And if I started introducing you as emotionally expensive, that would also be a joke." "That doesn't even make sense." "It makes perfect sense." She leaned in just slightly. "You are overreacting. And you are underestimating how irritating you've been." That made her blink. Good. Not because I wanted a fight, because for the first time that night, I wasn't smiling my way around the disrespect like a well-trained idiot. She stared at me for a second, then gave that short, incredulous laugh she used when she wanted to signal that someone beneath her had said something adorably out of place. "Wow." Her jaw tightened. "If you're going to be in a mood, at least don't do it where people can see." And that was the moment I knew the rest of the night was not going to end well for one of us. I should tell you that for one brief, extremely unhealthy moment, I considered disappearing into the garage with a bottle of bourbon and letting the party continue without me, just stepping out of the circus while the lead clown kept smiling. But that would have given Vanessa exactly what she wanted: the stage, the audience, and the ability to act like I was the unstable one who had suddenly gotten weird. So I stayed. I made another lap around the party, checking food, pretending to be busy. Vanessa was near the bar, glowing under the lights, laughing too easily, talking too loudly, fully enjoying the attention. A little later, Claire came over, holding a drink and wearing that neutral family face people put on when they know something is wrong, but would rather manage the optics than the behavior. "Everything okay?" she asked. That question almost made me laugh. "Fantastic," I said. "I always enjoy being mocked at events I paid for." "She's tipsy," Claire said. "She doesn't mean half of what she says." "That's not comforting." Claire lowered her voice. "Just don't make a scene." There it was. Not she should stop. Not she went too far. Just please suffer neatly. I gave her a polite nod. "I'll try not to inconvenience the audience." Then the cake came out. I hate birthday singing, but I endured it because I had paid for the cake and therefore had skin in the ritual. Candles, phones out. Everyone crowded around. Vanessa looked perfect, happy, gracious. Exactly the kind of woman strangers would call charming and husbands would call exhausting. When the singing ended, someone shouted, "Speech?" Of course. Vanessa lifted her glass. "Thank you everyone for coming. Seriously, this means a lot." Warm noises, smiles, glasses up. "And thank you to my family, my girls, everyone who helped." Helped. Interesting. Then she turned toward me. "And of course, Nathan, for putting this all together." A few people smiled at me. I nodded once. Then she laughed lightly and added, "He does very well when given clear instructions." Big laugh. I raised my glass slightly and said, "Glad to know I passed basic training." That got another laugh, lighter this time. Mine landed better than hers, which I think annoyed her. Then she said, "Can we not do this in front of everyone?" I almost admired that line. She had spent the whole night doing exactly that, and now wanted privacy the second I answered. "You mean the part you've been doing in front of everyone all night?" I asked. "Nathan." Warning tone. And then she said it. "Honestly? If you're going to ruin the night, then get out." Everything froze. For half a second, the whole backyard just stopped. Maybe someone gasped. Maybe somebody set down a glass too hard. I just remember the silence. Then Vanessa, realizing people had heard and deciding to double down instead of backtrack, looked right at me and said, "No, seriously, get out." Then I nodded once and said, "Okay." Her face changed immediately. A small flicker. Surprise. Because in all the versions of this scene that existed in her head, I don't think she had imagined I might simply agree. I turned, picked up my keys, phone, and jacket from the chair near the back door. Claire started, "Nathan." I raised one finger without looking at her, not angry, just clear. Eric stepped forward. "You want me to come with you?" "No." Diane finally spoke. "Vanessa, enough." Vanessa was still standing there holding her glass, and now she was calculating. The room wasn't laughing anymore, and that seemed to bother her more than what she had said. "He's making this bigger than it is," she snapped. I put on my jacket and looked at her. "You told me to leave." "Nathan, don't be ridiculous." I zipped my jacket slowly. "No. What's ridiculous is thinking you can say that to me here and then act like my response is the problem." She set her glass down too hard. "For God's sake, stop turning this into a spectacle." I glanced around at the silent audience. That ship sailed when you said it. Eric made a sound that might have been a cough or a laugh. Vanessa stepped closer and lowered her voice. "I did not mean literally leave." I matched her tone. "Then maybe next time use words that don't mean exactly that." I looked around at the guests. "Enjoy the food," I said. "The bartenders paid through midnight." Then I looked at Eric. Don't let anyone steal the bourbon. He raised his glass. I'll defend it with my life. A few nervous laughs escaped. Good. If I was leaving my own humiliation ceremony, I at least wanted one decent line on the way out. Then I walked through the house, out the front door. No slamming doors, no shouting, no dramatic pause. Just gone. I stood on the front steps for a moment, then walked to my car and got in. As soon as I started the engine, my phone buzzed. Eric, you good? Then Claire, don't do anything stupid. That one almost made me smile. Nothing calms a man faster than being preemptively accused of future stupidity by the family of the woman who just tried to evict him from his own house. Then Vanessa, where are you? A moment later, are you serious right now? Then, people are asking questions. That one was my favorite. Not, I'm sorry. Not, come back, let's talk. People are asking questions. Of course they were. That tends to happen when you publicly tell your husband to get out, and he does not, in fact, stand there waiting to be reclassified as overdramatic. I backed out of the driveway and left. I drove for a while without really thinking, just moving. Eventually I parked near the river and checked my phone again. More messages. Vanessa, this is so childish. Vanessa, come back inside. Vanessa, you embarrassed me. Vanessa, at my own birthday. Then came, Vanessa, everyone thinks you overreacted. Vanessa, if you wanted attention, congratulations. I laughed out loud at that one, because that was the whole thing, wasn't it? She reached for control, hit consequence, and now wanted to rename it. I got a room at a decent hotel, checked in, and sat on the bed staring at the wall for a while. Then my phone buzzed again. Vanessa, I hope you're happy. You ruined the whole night. I stared at it, then finally replied. You told me to get out. I listened. She answered a few minutes later. You know that's not what I meant. Then say what you mean next time. Pause. So that's it? You abandon your wife on her birthday? I smiled at that one. Abandon. As if she were stranded in the wilderness instead of standing in my house with catered food, family, alcohol, and the consequences of her own mouth. I replied, no. You dismissed your husband in public. Different verb. Then she sent, we'll talk tomorrow when you calm down. There it was again. The assumption that I was the emotional problem, that I needed to calm down while she had publicly thrown me out of my own house between cake and cocktails. I typed one last message. Tomorrow won't improve what you said tonight. Then I muted the conversation, lay back on the bed still half-dressed, and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in a long while, I stopped trying to translate contempt into stress. Stopped trying to fix her tone. Stopped trying to earn basic respect from a woman who had gotten far too comfortable spending mine. I fell asleep with one thought looping in my head. She told me to get out. And for once, I gave her exactly what she asked for. I woke up in the hotel with a stiff neck and the kind of clarity that only comes after public humiliation and bad sleep. For a few seconds, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered. My wife told me to get out of my own house in front of everyone, and then accused me of ruining her birthday. Romantic. My phone had exploded overnight. Messages from Vanessa, Claire, and of course Diane, which felt less like communication and more like a formal accusation. Vanessa's messages followed a predictable evolution. You embarrassed me. People are asking questions. You overreacted. This is not all on me. We need to talk in the morning. Not one apology. Just logistics and reputation management. I showered, made terrible hotel coffee, and made a decision. I was not going back home to argue in circles. Instead, I called a lawyer. An hour later, I had an appointment, a checklist, and the first sense that I was finally playing defense instead of hoping things would magically improve. Vanessa called while I was driving. So you're alive, she said. Last time I checked. Are you seriously still doing this? Doing what? The hotel, the drama. I left because you told me to. Oh my God, stop repeating that. I'll stop when it stops being true. She exhaled sharply. You knew I didn't mean it. You said it in front of 30 people. It was a heated moment. No, it was a comfortable moment. Silence. So you're punishing me now? She asked. No, I'm taking you seriously. That's manipulative. That's reality. Then she said the line that confirmed everything. I had to defend you to everyone. I laughed. You had to defend me? Yes. You looked unstable. You told me to get out of my own house. Oh my God, stop saying my house like you're scoring points. I'm not scoring points, I said calmly. I'm reminding you what reality you decided to test. She went quiet. Come home, she finally said. No. You're being impossible. No. I'm being less convenient. I hung up after that and met the lawyer. We went through property, finances, documentation, all the boring, necessary things that suddenly matter when respect collapses. It was oddly calming. Nothing like a professional calmly explaining how not to get financially dismantled. Afterward, I drove home. Not to stay, just to collect documents and clothes. The house looked perfectly normal. Lights still hanging. No sign that the previous night had detonated anything. Vanessa was in the kitchen. Oh, so you do remember where you live, she said. Temporarily. Her eyes narrowed. Don't do that calm thing. It's infuriating. Funny. I was going to say the same about your personality lately. She crossed her arms. Where were you? Getting organized. She froze slightly. What does that mean? It means I'm done improvising. I didn't mean it like that, she said. Then say what you mean next time. You knew what I meant. No, I knew what you counted on. That hit. You're turning one sentence into a crisis, she snapped. They were jokes. You're dramatic. And you're comfortable disrespecting me. She shook her head. You waited and now you explode. I nodded. Yes, I waited too long. That part's on me. She blinked, surprised. But you crossed the line. That part's on you. Silence. So what now? She asked. You punish me? No, I stopped being convenient. I grabbed my laptop, documents, and a change of clothes. So you're leaving again? She asked. For now. You can't do this every time you're angry. I'm not angry. I'm adjusting. She stepped closer and softened slightly. You're blowing this up. No, I said. I'm finally seeing the real size of it. That one hurt her. I picked up my bag. She didn't move. And for the first time since the night before, I saw something new in her expression. Not anger, not superiority, uncertainty. Because she realized something had changed. And this time, I didn't come back the same. I walked past her toward the door, bag over my shoulder, keys in hand. She still hadn't moved, which was unusual. Normally, Vanessa filled silence with control. Now she just watched me like she was trying to figure out whether this was a bluff. It wasn't. You're seriously leaving again? She said. For now. And where are you going? Somewhere quiet. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need. She let out a short laugh. You're doing this to scare me. I paused at the door. No. I'm doing this because I finally realized you weren't scared of losing me. That one landed. I opened the door. Behind me, she said, So what? You just walk away? I turned slightly. You told me to. Then I left. Outside, the air felt different. Not lighter exactly, but clearer. Like the fog had burned off and now I could see the mess for what it actually was. I drove without a plan again, which seemed to be my new hobby. Eventually, I stopped at a small cafe, ordered coffee, and sat near the window. People moved normally outside. A couple argued about parking. A kid dropped a pastry. Life continued, which felt slightly offensive but also reassuring. My phone buzzed. Vanessa, you're really going to keep doing this? I stared at the message. Then, this is childish. Then, we need to talk properly. I replied, we've already talked. She answered immediately, so what do you want? That was the first honest question she had asked since the party. I thought about it. Not revenge, not apology theater, Just one simple thing. I typed, "I want you to understand that what you said wasn't normal." 3 dots appeared. Then, "You're acting like I committed a crime." "No, I'm acting like you crossed a line." Another pause. Then, "Fine. I crossed a line. Happy?" I smiled slightly. That wasn't understanding. That was negotiation language. Not the same thing. I didn't answer. A minute later, "So what now?" I finished my coffee and typed, "Now we'll finish this." She didn't like that. No reply. 10 minutes later, she called. I answered. She sounded tired now, not sharp. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." "Maybe." I said I crossed a line. "You said it like you were paying a parking ticket." Silence. "I don't know what you want from me," she said quietly. "I want you to see that telling your husband to get out in front of everyone means something." I said I didn't mean it literally. "I don't want to come back just to pretend it didn't happen. Forgive me, come back home." I looked out the window. People walking, sunlight on parked cars, ordinary calm. "Not yet," I said. Her voice tightened again. "You're punishing me." "No, I'm resetting." "That's just a nicer word." "Maybe." Silence. "I'll call you later," she said. "There is no need for this." We hung up. I sat there for a while thinking about how strange it was that the first real conversation we'd had in months happened after she told me to get out. Sometimes respect only shows up after absence. Sometimes distance is the only language people suddenly understand. I paid for the coffee, walked outside, and for the first time since the party, I wasn't replaying the moment. Not because it didn't matter, because it had already done its job. She told me to get out, and now she was finally realizing what that actually meant. 10 days passed, no dramatic fights, no shouting, no long emotional speeches, just distance. We spoke a few times, short, controlled conversations, logistics, polite tone, like 2 co-workers who used to share a life. Vanessa tried to normalize things, small talk, casual questions. One evening she even sent, "The house is empty and quiet without you." I didn't answer that one. In those 10 days, something settled inside me. Not anger, not sadness. Just a quiet decision that kept hardening every time I replayed the moment. If you're going to ruin the night, get out. And the certainty in her voice. I met with the lawyer again. He slid the papers across the table without ceremony. "Once you're sure," he said. I was. On day 10, I drove to the house. It was late afternoon. The same driveway, the same door, the same normal calm that always made big decisions feel almost surreal. Vanessa opened the door. She looked surprised but not alarmed. "Hey, I didn't know you were coming." I said I'd stop by sometime. She stepped aside. "You want coffee?" "No." She noticed the folder in my hand. Her eyes stayed on it. "What's that?" I didn't answer immediately. I walked into the kitchen, the same place everything had started, and set the folder on the counter. Her voice got quieter. "Nathan, what is that?" I opened it and slid the documents toward her. She didn't touch them at first. Then she looked down. The silence stretched. I watched her read the first line, then the second. Her shoulders stiffened. "You're serious?" "Yes." She looked up slowly. "You filed?" I prepared. "That's the same thing." "Not yet." She leaned back against the counter like the room had shifted. "This is because of that night. This is because of what that night revealed. I told you I didn't mean it. I know. And you still—" "Yes." She swallowed. "You're not even angry anymore." "No." She looked back down at the papers. "So, this is it? It's a decision, not a scene. You waited 10 days. I wanted to be sure. And you are." "Yes." She nodded slowly, absorbing it. No crying, no shouting. Just the slow realization that the moment she thought was small had quietly become permanent. "I thought you'd cool down," she said. "I did. And this is you? Calm." "Yes." She gave a small, sad laugh. "I really didn't think you'd actually leave." "I know. That silence again. After a moment, she said, "So the party, that was the end?" "No," I replied. "That was the moment I realized the end was already there." She looked at me, and for the first time there was no defensiveness in her expression, just understanding. "You told me to get out," I said quietly. She closed her eyes for a second. "I remember." No more words were needed. I closed the folder gently and left it on the counter. Then I picked up my keys. She didn't try to stop me. At the door, she said softly, "Nathan." I turned. I didn't think words could do this. "They usually don't," I said. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and walked to my car. No anger, no victory, just quiet. Because sometimes a marriage doesn't end in a fight. Sometimes it ends 10 days after someone says get out, and finally understands what that really meant. 2 months later, the house was already on the market. Vanessa had moved into a small apartment across town. We handled everything the same way we ended. Calm, polite, almost businesslike. No scenes, no last-minute confessions, just signatures and quiet handoffs. The day the sale closed, I drove past the old place once. The new owners had already taken down the lights I'd hung for that party. The backyard looked smaller than I remembered. My phone buzzed. A short message from Vanessa. I still replay that night sometimes. I looked at it for a moment, then typed back, "So do I." I put the phone away and started the engine. Because in the end, it wasn't the party that ended the marriage. Because of disrespect. Because we stopped appreciating each other and eventually stopped loving each other. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.